for more insights on this. International relations expert Robert Patman. Robert, thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Good morning, Melissa.
Just in the last few moments, we've heard Boris Johnson say they are going to impose the largest and most severe sanctions Russia has ever seen. Are sanctions going to be enough to pull this back?
Well, sanctions will take time to work. The sort of sanctions both the United States, the UK and other EU leaders are considering could be very significant, effectively cutting Russia off from the international financial system to some degree. So, but that will take time to work. And Mr. Putin is got reserves, international reserves, about 630 billion. The Russian economy, with the rise in oil prices, has been doing well recently.
Are we ever going to see boots on the ground from Western governments? Because Boris Johnson saying this morning that President Putin has unleashed war in our European continent, so clearly not seeing this as just war against Ukraine. But will boots on the ground ever be a consideration?
I think there's a possibility that the conflict in Ukraine could spill over to neighbouring countries. I don't anticipate at the moment that NATO troops or US troops would actually be fighting against Russians in Ukraine. But this conflict has the potential to spill over. Many Eastern European countries have deep hostility towards Russia under Mr. Putin and strongly support the Ukrainian democratic government. And there's going to be refugees spilling out of this conflict, and there is a possibility that neighbouring countries could get dragged in. And so we can't rule out the possibility that the conflict will spread.
Russians, Moscow has said that they have already taken control of a military airbase on the outskirts of Kiev. Now, we know that the military in Ukraine is a lot stronger than it was in 2014, but this doesn't bode well, does it, for that to happen so early on?
No, but there is, a tremendous imbalance here between the military capabilities of Russia and Ukraine. The Ukrainian army is in much better shape than it was in 2014. But this is still sobering to some degree for Russia, because although it's making early strides, that is to be expected given the imbalance in military capabilities between two sides. And if we look at other conflicts, the United States had no problem overwhelming Iraq within 3 weeks in 2003. But that did not stop a full-blown insurgency breaking out, which eventually pushed the United States out of that country in 2010. Now, if we look at the Russian situation, I have little doubt that they could possibly overwhelm Ukraine in the not too distant future. That remains to be seen, of course, and that's just speculation on my part. But even if they do, Melissa, that does not mean that the Russians will achieve their political objective, which is essentially to make Ukraine, from their point of view, a benign buffer state, which is pro-Russian.
Right, yeah, because President Putin says that his intent is demilitarization and denazification of Ukraine, which is interesting given that President Zelensky is Jewish himself. So when do you think he will stop? What is his ultimate goal?
Well, first of all, there's been a tremendous disconnect between Mr. Putin's words and his actions. He was saying he would never invade Ukraine a week or so ago, and of course it's duly eventuated. His eventual goal seems to be, it's very difficult to know, but I think it appears to be that he would like to reclaim Ukraine as part of Russia. Remember, early in the week, he actually denied the legitimacy of Ukraine as an independent sovereign state and said that Ukraine was essentially a Russian creation and that Ukraine currently occupies ancient Russian lands. In short, this is not so much Russia, from Putin's point of view, is not so much a violation of sovereignty of Ukraine, but Russia reclaiming territory which belongs to it.
Right. What can New Zealand do? We're pretty hamstrung in terms of what we can do, aren't we?
In this, yeah, we've got a lot of skin in this game. This is a tremendous assault not just on the sovereignty of Ukraine, but to every other independent country. We in New Zealand pride ourselves on our independent foreign policy. We don't accept master-servant relationships with other bigger states, and nor should we expect Ukraine to. And there's another twist here. A key feature of our foreign policy is our emphasis on non-nuclear security. Ukraine gave up its nuclear weapons in '94 in return for a Russian undertaking and solemn promise to recognize the sovereignty and territorial integrity of that country. That promise has, of course, been reneged on since 2014 with the annexation of Crimea. But this is a worrying development for us. Our vision of moving towards a non-nuclear world is taking a backward step as a nuclear-armed Russia invades a non-nuclear Ukraine.
Right. So should our response be stronger than currently, which is condemnation? But I guess we're hamstrung in terms of the sanctions we can put on Russia. So what can we do in that situation?
I think we can do quite a lot diplomatically. I take the point about the practical constraints around sanctions, but New Zealand has won a lot of international political capital in recent years because of its response to the terrorist atrocity in 2019 in Christchurch, and also the way it's handled COVID-19. So the Ardern government has some standing internationally. I think we should use that standing to rally the smaller and the middle powers to voice strong opposition to what the Putin government has done. Remember, the Putin authoritarian regime won't take any notice of a diplomatic joint statement, which New Zealand may have helped put together. But the Russian people need to hear the message from the rest of the world clearly and loudly that what their leader has done, he's lied to them about the situation in Ukraine, and he's now breaking every single rule in the UN Charter, it seems to me. And so it's very important that we do our bit in raising awareness internationally how unacceptable this action is in the 21st century.
International relations expert Robert Patman, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.